If you enjoy true horror and dark legends, don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying experiences every day. Now let's go up the mountain together. Once a year when the red stars shone, the village sent someone up the mountain toady. The sacrifice was chosen by the village elders. Sometimes there was a volunteer, a soul old enough or sick enough or brave enough to choose to climb the path to their death, but more often than not, no man or woman stepped forward. And so the elders chose whomever they believed the village would miss the least. When the stranger arrived at the gate 3 days before the star emerged, their villagers thanked God for their blessing. The town had once been thriving but had shriveled in the last decades, as those who could escape the mountain did, and those who could not were slowly given to the thing on the mountain instead of losing one of their own dwindling number. The villagers online to make the stranger comfortable for 3 days, and then when the red star lit the sky above the jagged range, they would take him. So the visitor was given as much ale as could drink, as much meat as he could stomach. He was provided with the best of finds, 3 rooms, and a bed made of fresh straw. And when he protested that he could not pay for these luxuries, the villagers schooled them gifts. It was their tradition. This time each time they lied, to keep plenty upon it, in the hopes that their good deeds would lead God to bless them in the year ahead. The villagers tried to send the stranger girls at night, but Hef, claiming he held a vow to remain chaste until some secret task was finished. This worried the elders, as only knights and priests usually made such vows. When the innkeeper found hidden armor and a sword in the visitor's room, the elders grew more anxious still, but they told themselves that no knight will travel alone, and in such poor conditions, he must be a soldier. They said, perhaps a mercenary from the war in the east, a revan, a deserter. They convinced themselves it was Thelator, as that would make his murderless of a sin, or so they hoped. On the dawn of the stranger's 3rd day in the village, the clouds that circled that mountain like buzzards around a dead deer held a ruby tinge. That was the sign that the elders knew heralded the rise of the red star, and so they prepared. They added herbs to the straws as Winithat would put him into a deep, unshakable sleep. What the villagers did not realize was that the stranger never drank their wine, nor did he eat any of the food they served him. He only made a show of gluttony, splashing and spilling every morsel and every drop. Only the S from his own stores went alone at night. As dusk fell on the village, and a scarlet glow began to bloody thenticulate horizon, the stranger faked a sudden exhaustion and retired to his room. The villagers sent 4 of their strongest farmers to creep up the inn stairs with rope and clubs. When the men pushed open the shutters were closed and the light was dim. Some shape rested under the blankets on the bed, and they fell upon it. Swinging their cudgels cut from rough old oak, they were restrained, careful not to risk killing the stranger before they could drag him up the mountain to the ruins of the old chapel. The first farmer died with a sword through his back when the visitor slipped from his hiding place in Thekina. The next 2 were cut down before the first man fell, and the final attacker only had time to open his mouth to shout before the cold iron slipped between his teeth and out through the back of his neck downstairs. The 5 elders and timekeeper waited. There was a cart and a mule in the yard, ready to take the stranger up the narrow mountain road to the foot of the church nearest peak. 4 thuds sounded in the stairwell, followed by 4 freshly sore heads. Before any of the men could react, their stranger descended with naked steel in his hand. He wore mail and leather under his cloak, and his green eyes had a "You would murder me?" he asked 6 men in the empty hall. "You have already offered me hospitality and welcome as your protection. Betrayers, killers, cowards, worms in the dirt." The elders froze, pinned under their stranger's hateful glare. They were old, and none of them were fighters. The visitor was young and tall, and well made. His sword was smeared with the lifeblood of the 4 farmers, and his mail would turn any of the knives the old men carried. The innkeeper, who was younger and stronger than the others, thought offering for the cudgel under his bar, but the way the stranger smiled as the villager shifted his weight killed the idea and cowed the man. The armored man asked, pointing his steel at the most senior of the "To weigh me, to rob me." The old man stared at the gore dripping from the blade and felt his mouth watery. "We are not bandits," he said, forcing the words out in a rasp. "We owe a life to the devil on the mountain each year. Tonight is the night it collects. We would rather it be you than any of us." The stranger smiled and lowered his word. "You should have simply asked. I would have gone willingly. That is why I am here. But now for men you cannot spare ale, and you are all damned for breaking your hospitality, though perhaps you are already bound for theft, and this sin does but little damage to your already ragged souls." 6 heads bent in shame, but the elder who had spoken before managed to meet the visitor's eyes after a moment. "You said you're here to walk the mountain road?" the old man asked, "knowing that your death waits at the end of it." "Some death does wait," the stranger replied, wiping his blade clean against his cloak and sliding it into its heavy scabbard. "Though we will see if it is mine or some others. You cannot kill the devil that lives on the mountain with iron. We have tried that. It speaks words that can kill or blind or bind you. It is not a mortal thing, but an abomination come crawling from some ditch in hell." The stranger walked down the stairs, causing the other men to move aside. I'm sure you did try, but you should have kept trying until there the demon was dead, or there was no one left to fight it instead. You knelt, you bowed, you danced on Theedville's strings and sent children toady, all so you may rot here, alive but broken. Season after struggling season. Who are you to judge us? One of Theelders demanded. You do not know what have seen or suffered. You do not know us. I know you better than I, which the stranger said. Leaving the inn and beginning his journey up the mountain, he turned back to face the villagers from the doorway. If any of you still pray, pray tonight. Pray for forgiveness if you wish, or better, I pray to remember what it was like to be good men and free. I'm sure you all were once, or at least you could have been. The red star rose as the young man, washing the mountain in a rusty glow. The path was steep, lined on either side by sharp stones and long drops too. Heavily below. There were no signs of life, other than occasional gnarled and stunted tree growing directly from the rock and veil of blackbirds that roosted in twisted branches. Those birds Meadow watched the stranger as he made his way up the battered road toward the ruined church that waited at the mountain's peak. By the time the man reached the summit, the night sky was so red it seemed almost on fire. The scarlet star shone high above Thest, too bright to look at directly. A cruel west wind began to blow, snapping the traveler's cloak and carrying with it a smell like rotting meat. The once proud church stood alone at the top of the mountain. Once it had been a small but beautiful, a gift to the village from a long dead king. But from as far back now as any living below can remember, the abbey had become a vile and profane place. A doom hung over the crumbling building, a curse that demands its yearly tithe of blood. The stranger had seen the church once before when he was a boy, on the worst and most powerless night of his life. As he approached the unhallowed ground, he drew his sword and swore on its iron that come the dawn, the evil in Thesplis would be lifted, or his own life's flame would sit extinguished. He would not live another year under third star. The mountain path ended at the foot of a crooked gate set in the church's broken wall. Chapel itself was formed from eroded and cracked stones veined here and there with creeping vines. Its windows were open and without shutters. Half of the church's roof had long ago, allowing in all manner of weather, and seeping the nave with theolite of the hateful star. A tiny cemetery studded with faded markers and snapped crosses covered there between chapel and wall. The stranger stopped at the gate and surveyed the graveyard. Most of the tombstones had been debased, the plots churned and defiled, bones sat exposed, dug up, only to be abandoned by the thing that resided in ruin. The young man felt the first flicker of a berserker rage put a tremble into his. He breathed deep, pressing Thenger down into a manageable simmer, a fire that he could draw strength from rather than an inferno that would make him mindless, reckless, and mad. Ghosts drifted among the gravestones, their forms as thin and tattered as spiderwebs after a storm. They wept and wailed as they moved in their fitful rotations. The man could see the terrible marks, Fabius, their bodies had endured in life, carved forever into what remained of their souls. Here, under a copse of shriveled trees, Aspector crawled between stone markers, his legs sliced open to the bone, high-sized red sockets that still wept gossamer or tears near the man. Another spirit stood shrieking in silent agony as the ghost of the fire that consumed her mortal form still licked at her eternal shadow. Close to the church door, the stranger found the phantom he was seeking. She was the youngest shade in the yard that the man could see, her white dress simple and her dark hair loose. He wept when he saw the echoes of her wounds and the scars. Her spirit still wore even in death. Hate nearly took him then. Hate for Thevelage and for the devil, and most of all hate for himself. Lifeless glassy eyes passed over Thestranger as he came close to the phantom. She did not seem to recognize him or reverence him, but the living man made the dead girl appromise nonetheless. This will be the last night you suffer here alone, wandering among these poor ravaged souls. I will free you from this hell, or I will join you in it as I should have all of those years ago. The spirit made no answer, but Thestranger thought he saw a light in her, if only for an instant. Whether that was the spark of recognition or of madness, or only the reflection of that unholy star, he could not say, but he steeled himself with hope that it was the first, as he prepared to step into the devil's church. But before he stepped through Theoverground door, the stranger touched Thuipan in the pouch on his belt that he believed might kill a demon. Row after row of broken queues greeted through a rear, collapsed ceiling gave him a clear view of the bloody sky above. Eerie red light soaked the nave, casting long shadows. It was utterly silent other than the whispering mountain wind and its edge. No rats scraped among the fallen stones. No bats hung from the rafters, and no nighty birds called from nearby branches. The church was empty and dead except for the stranger in the shadows. He stopped in the middle of the Aselbia, the altar, while all of the chapel was defiled. The altar was a scene of purest blasphemy. Deformed idols were scattered across the obscene images and names that caused the stranger's eyes to twitch where it scratched into the wooden columns. Blood and other unknown things stained at once white cloth, greater than you do not come in chains or rope, a voice said from the shadows. So, they found a willing one this year. Willing? Yes, the man replied, raising his sword into a guard and turning towards Thevos. The thing laughed and it sounded like a buzzing of flies. Are you here to fight me with my sword, with my boots, with tooth and nail, with whatever it takes to kill you, greater than come closer and kill me then? Brave little man. The stranger's eyes were adjusted to the jaded gloom in the church. There was a shadow behind the altar that was darker than the other shadows around it. As the warrior watched, this black patch became the silhouette of something but much taller and broader looming over the stranger. Even though Theodore's back was bent, the form waited, seeming to grow darker and larger. Thelinger, the man watched. Why did you come here? The stranger asked, stepping forward and changing to a one-handed grip on his sword. I was called and so I answered. Greater than called by whom? Another careful step forward, the point of his sword in line with where Theodore's heart would be if it were a living thing. Caldelaview, you scheming, violent, vicious creatures. Come quicker. Meet the night is already half done, and I am so very hungry. Greater than, as the stranger advanced, the developer to both increase in size while also slipping further and further back into the ruined church. He knew it was drawing him in, and when it struck, it would be fast. It seemed like the red star above was nearly pulsing now, ruby light melting into the deep shadows, until there assembled fading bloodstains on throws and floors and ceiling. Risking a glance up, the traveler saw open sky and noted that he was at the edge of the collapsed roof. If he kept walking, he would soon be in utter darkness. He decided this was the best spot. Do you know what you are? The stranger asked the shadow. You're a kind of mold. You are rot. You're the flies and worms and maggots confined in spoiled meat. Enough talk, man. Come forward and find if you can kill me. I could kill you, the stranger said, lowering his sword. But now that I see you and smell you and know you, I'm not sure you're worth killing. I thought you were some devil, a prince of hell. You're just a shadow, a stain. You don't need a knight to slay you or a priest to exorcise. You require nothing more than fresh water and hard scrubbing. Proud words, man. The buzzing voice said so loud and close the stranger nearly dropped his sword with the urge to cover his ears. The smell hit him a moment later. It was stink of unwashed animals and people, dead things left too long in Thesian. The shadow behind the altar was gone, and the traveler turned just in time to find it behind him. There were no teeth or claws, only a sound like rushing water. Anthon, the shadow fell on the stranger. In the blackness, the stranger suddenly wished nothing more than to die. All strength left his arms. His will buckled into a house of sticks against Oricine. A deep, terrible coldness flooded into his lungs. His veins, his bones, in that perfect apathy. The warrior knew he needed only to close his eyes and give up, and nothing would hurt him ever again greater than proud words. Man, the devil repeated. This time in all his it knew the stranger's sword was never at that nothing the flesh thing could do was ever truly a threat. But in rushing out to attack the visitor instead of waiting for him to fall deeper into darkness, the demon made a mistake that allowed the stranger a moment to reach into a pouch on his belt and toppled from the leather a small piece of rusted iron, because the devil was focused on their sharp but harmless sword. It barrelinitist as the man's other hand, the one which held the nail, pressed forward. The demon could have killed the stranger from the moment he walked through their church door. It could have plucked them at arms from their sockets as easily as a cruel child could pull the wings off a pinned butterfly, but it didn't because the visitor's words made it angry. The mountain devil wanted to savor a themament when the stranger realized his quest was pointless. It wanted to taste the despair in the man's soul. So it lingered, extended the suffering, and paid the nail heed until the dying warrior plunged it into the center of the shadow where the heart should have been. The nail was shriveled with age, stained with rust and other imperfections. It was as long as the man's finger, though much thinner. Finding and acquiring the nail had taken the stranger a lifetime. All of the years he spent traveling, training, and preparing his body and his mind for one night against the devil. That time had also been spent searching. The traveler found countless relics in those 2 decades, all of them false. Saints' bones that were pulled from fresh corpses, splinters from the cross that came from decaying doorframes. But the nail was real. The stranger knew from the moment, hefting it on the shores of the Jordan River and from the dreams that it brought him each night, that the nail was its weapon. Now the devil knew it too. It screamed when the metal penetrated its shadow shape. It howled with agony that even hell found unfamiliar and startling. The demon fled the chapel, flowing off the mountain like an oily cloud, its screech shaking the village below. Smiling, the stranger collapsed. When he next opened his eyes, the church was full of ghosts. All of the shades from the yard outside now stood around him. Their wounds were agony and all of them appeared as they had in life. You came back, a small voice said. The stranger turned and found the young girl, the one in the white dress. Her scars had disappeared. She looked exactly as she had the last time he'd seen her alive more than 20 years before. You've grown up, the girl said, tucking his hand. "I'm sorry," the stranger whispered, tears in his eyes. "I promised I'd protect you." The phantom pressed a hand against his cheek. "Be easy. Mother and father couldn't stop them. What chance had a child? But now you've saved me. I'm sorry it came at such a high cost." The stranger followed her gaze and saw his still cold body on the church stones. "A price I paid gladly," the new shade said, "and one I would pay again. You won't have to." The girl pointed to the sky. Above them, the red star faded like a lost ember rental. Its terrible light was gone, freed from the unnatural glow. The constellations shone over the mountain like lanterns floating across a vast lake. "I have missed you," the stranger told Dagger. She squeezed his hand. "I know what happens now that I do not know, but I do not mind it. Whatever it will." The stranger stood hand in hand with the girl and all the ghosts of souls given to the mountain. That morning's sunrise came over Therridge like a wave dot. By the time the bright light fell on Therridge below, the church was empty and clean and still dot. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. Hope you have a great night.